So State Street, I'm in Chicago, and this used to be the famous shopping district. It had all the windows during the holiday. It has the theater district right off it. We come down here for the Christmas Carol, which was about Scrooge. And I came down here as a child with my mother to see the windows. It was awesome. This was like the thing. State Street. Woo. It lost its glamour. And so I'm waiting for it to come back. This Block 37 project here, this was supposed to bring it back, truly unite the fire of the comeback of State Street being a prominent shopping and theatrical area. You don't even hear much about, you hear always about Broadway. What do we call the theater district in Chicago? I have no idea. They can't call it the financial district because that's down here, right next to the theater district. I have no idea what they call this, but the reason that New York gets so much fame is because they got a good name. It's on Broadway, the street, and so they call it Broadway. The theater district is Broadway, and they have a name for it. What is the Chicago Theater District besides Chicago Theater District? If it was the New York Theater District, it would be generic, but they call it Broadway. And Broadway, first run plays, and it has all the mystique, and you want to be in a play on Broadway. And truly, they even have a play about being in a play on Broadway and how prestigious it is. But the Chicago Theater District, they have to come up with a name. They're on multiple different streets. So they got to figure out what the name is for the theater district. Truly, they need to brand it. And remember, the symphony orchestra and the opera, you could say that's part of the theatrical because the orchestra plays different theatrical tunes. And remember, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra can play at what? The Chicago Opera. Yes, all those symphony pieces work well with operas. So the opera people can incorporate the symphony music into them, and they can play at the different theater houses down here as well. And then the opera people can show the other theater districts on how to do these plays. They can do foreign language plays. I'm not against the play being in all Italian. Now, what does the United Nations do? They give translators. So everything is translated. They don't read it. They have it in their ear. That's why they see the UN and they have that little earpiece, because all of them have it translated. So they have translators working in the UN that if they can give it in Korean, but it's all translated verbally. They can do closed caption if they want as well, but they all get verbal translations. And so they should be able to back it up like YouTube and so on, and tell the translator, put a button red, pause, and the translator keeps on going, but they can't hear them. And then they can go forward and it'll catch them up. But again, everything is translated. So you can go to the opera and work it. You put the earpiece in and you can understand it in English. It's only in one ear. They hear the speaker, but they also hear the translation. So most of the United Nations, the language of diplomacy is French. The language of diplomacy is French. That is the nation, that is the formal language of the United Nations. That's why I told Jenna that she could work at the United Nations as a translator, because French is the language of diplomacy And that's what they do at the United Nations. So it's not the language of business. That's English. The language of diplomacy is French. And so they speak a lot of French at the United Nations. That's the language of diplomacy. You can say there's a language of the theater, truly. So there's a language to music, there's a language to this, there's a language to government. So diplomacy is French, business is English. I don't know what the language of government is. Is it Latin? Truly, it could be Latin. So, again, I don't know what the language of government would be formally, but a lot of great cultures were in Latin. So that could be the language of government. But, again, they have to figure out, Armani, he's a good guy, Dwayne Wade. Now, he came to Excalibur, and I met some guys that were driving his car. A white guy had talked to him. He was driving, he's a good friend of Dwayne, and he was driving one of his high-end cars. But I came up to him and said, hey, nice car, and so on, while I was working the door, and he's like, that's Dwayne's car. He just lets me drive it. And I'm like, sure. And we had a conversation about, Dwayne and basically and so on. But they're all good things. I like Dwayne Wade. He was a class act when he was in Miami, and he was here with the Bulls for a while as well. So he has a presence and he has a history, and they need to acknowledge that the years that he played for the Chicago Bulls. So they did an Armani ad. You have that connection, so you should use it. It's a positive connection. Just like if you're doing it in Miami, you want to make the connection. Now, you got to pay the team a royalty, and that royalty, part of it goes to the NBA, but they can use clips in that of his history and build it into the ad campaign. And they can use different campaigns in different markets. Like in Chicago, you don't want to use the Miami campaign. You want to build it off of his history with the Chicago Bulls. And so you bring out certain clips and certain things. I like Armani cologne. I used to wear it. I used to go into Armani Exchange, the XL. That's all I could afford, but I like going in there, and I bought some things. At least it was affordable to me. I couldn't go in and buy the other stuff, but I could buy a few things. I had some Armani t-shirts and I think jeans, but very few items. But again, it was at least something that was more affordable to me. But they have to figure this out. Like down here in the financial district, the Chicago Fed's right here, right near the Board of Trade. And they do currencies down here, and the Fed is supposed to be watching international currencies. Not only other currencies, the U.S. currency trading on international exchanges. The Chicago Fed needs to watch international currencies and then interest rates, because they directly impact bonds, treasuries, but they directly impact the currency as well, because it's the cost of capital. And so it's the debt the country will incur on those treasuries. So when the treasuries move up, yes, treasuries go in more in demand because it pays a better interest rate, but the dollar goes down because the country's incurring more debt obligation. So they're inversely related. So if you understand this, you can buy the dollar or short the dollar and go long the treasury, or do it in reverse, short the treasury, go long the dollar, depending on the rates of interest rate. So you buy puts and calls on currency. So again, that's because it floats. So when interest rates change, you can do that play. And you can do a strangle or a straddle, or as Jeff liked to talk about all the time because it's, the iron condor, which is a combination strategy. And I forget exactly how it is, but he used to preach it all the time. And it is basically a combination of a couple strategies. But again, it's another way to play a position. So again, these are things, if you understand, and they should be teaching, like go to Sink or Swim. They have courses, and I think they got bought by TD Ameritrade, and TD Ameritrade got bought by Charles Schwab. So Charles Schwab owns TD Ameritrade. So they own Sink or Swim, which is their option arm. And it was a smart move. It was started by options traders here in Chicago. And so Sink or Swim, this is their home base. And you can get a paper account on Sink or Swim. That means it's a fake account, but you trade real numbers. But you use fake money. But remember, when the real money's on the line, you get that sinking feeling. You get anxiety. That's why traders have breakdowns. With the paper account, no matter how much you want to make it real, it's not real. It's like shooting a gun in a range and everything. And this is why in World War II, and it's sad, but some people died on the range where they go under the barbed wire. They were using live rounds, and people got a bullet through their head. But some people died because they wanted to know, truly, it was flying live rounds over their head. If you didn't lift your head, you didn't get one. But some people got a bullet. But the thing is, they understood the instructor. Well, they're really going to hit the beaches, and they're really going to go through it, and we need to see how they really react. Because you can't fix it in a fake thing. So when you're trading a paper account, the correlation to making the same decisions, it doesn't correlate when it starts becoming your own money. You start changing your decisions, and it does. So remember, you're braver with the paper, and you need to calculate the error. You're not going to be as brave when it's real. So you're going to be more conservative. So that's fine. More conservative is not a bad thing. You're just in a tighter range. As long as you're positive, it's just not going to be as positive. But that's fine. And you can keep on practicing with the paper account, with the real numbers, with the paper account to perfect. So don't stop trading the paper account. Run your scenarios through. Run your system through on the paper account. It's a great way to run it through, and then you can differ between your applied, between your theory. And so you're running applied next to theory constantly. And you're tweaking. And you can see the difference between what you thought and what really occurred. Never stop trading the paper account. You'll learn on the paper account as well. You'll come up with aha moments. And the reason why? Because you're not as scared. See, when you're in the moment, as much as you want to say, you tense up and you don't think as well. And that's why you have to take breaks and everything. Truly, you need to step away, lower the anxiety. The subconscious has the anxiety, even if you don't feel it consciously. And what they do in Billionaire is correct. They have an in-house therapist for the firm. And she sees people on a daily basis or weekly basis, helping them relieve tension, to refocus, because there's a lot of anxiety. Even if you don't feel it, it's still going on in your brain. You're just not the spillover. So eventually it spills over from the subconscious to the conscious, and that's when you have a breakdown. When you have a breakdown, any breakdown starts in the subconscious. And Once it gets to a point, it spills over to the conscious, and that's when you have the breakdown. The subconscious keeps on trying to repair things. That's the dreams and everything working out. But eventually, if it's too much trauma, it spills and you get schizophrenia and bipolar and many other things. And the reason these things happen, these are responses to deal with trauma. So the brain becomes fractured and the wiring has changed. And it went from the subconscious trying to, behind the scenes, like the producer and that, racing to fix the problem. You don't know what's going on because when you're sleeping, the subconscious is still working. That's what creates the dreams, not the conscious, the subconscious. And it's trying to work out the scenarios, and it's running through these scenarios. But when you implant dreams, then you don't get the scenarios. Because the reality of what's going on in the subconscious is not the reality that's happening in your mind. And so you start fracturing the mind by implanting dreams. But they don't understand this. They're too stupid. But you start fracturing somebody from reality by implanting dreams. See, dreams are created by the subconscious. And when you work out your problems like me, and this is what they don't understand, you don't dream a lot. Because I address my issues. It's like Jen. I guarantee you she didn't dream a lot. People that are self-reflective and work out their issues, they don't really dream a lot. They do have REM, but they don't have dreams. There's a difference between having a lucid dream and having REM. REM is when the brain wakes up to check the circuitry. What do you do on a computer? You correct something and then you reboot it and put it through the test. That's what rapid eye movement is. It wakes you up to test, and the brain is surveying what's going on and trying to fix the problem. And this is another problem that they don't understand with pharmaceuticals. That the pharmaceuticals can hinder the brain's own repair mode. It can hinder the brain and work against. And so they got to be very careful that it's not interfering with the brain's own subconscious and own rebooting system, its ability to regenerate. This whole thing about using antipsychotics and everything else, it's all fucking new. They have no idea what they're doing. Truly. And talk to, I'll give you shows, but professionals that said that. It's a false science. They truly have no idea what they're doing. They're still playing in the dark. And you're a test case. And so they're missing or messing up what's happening with the brain's ability to self-heal. And you don't want to screw up the body's own self-healing, because then it gets weaker. And then you get more dependent on the pharmaceuticals. And if the pharmaceutical industry is evil, then they'll do that. And you'll always be screwed up. They don't know how to unwind things. They have no idea, and that's why God said, don't play God. Don't bite into the forbidden fruit. Stay out of the freaking mind. Unless you're bettering it, do not destroy a healthy person. And if you're freaking with a healthy person, I'm telling you now, and if it's me, you're going to burn unbelievably, and everybody with you is going to be slaughtered. But that's the choice you made. I warned you from the beginning, and there will be no mercy. There will be no forgiveness. It is pure death. So I don't care if you kill yourself like Judas. Neither did Jesus, and neither did any of the disciples. Feel free, and it'll burn you more. You're called to repent for the rest of your life. And that's the point. And it gets back to Jen. So if she doesn't want to, that's her choice. But it doesn't mean the rooster isn't coming and it's going to crow and she's going to pay. So you can act like the head in the sand and they tell you that doesn't solve anything. So you can put your head in the sand, but it doesn't give you any resolution, and your head might get chopped off while it's in the sand. So everybody knows you must address your issues. They're not going to go away. Somebody hit the stoplight again. But I'm down here. The two clubs, they should get together in a partnership, Spy Bar and Sound Bar. They're right across from each other. They should work in collaborative. Truly, they would be better off if they worked together as a team. So, anyways, I'm waiting for this to be the hot spot with Tao right down the street. That this should be an incredibly cool place to be. So, but getting off of this is what I hate about diabetic medication. They got to be very careful. You want to take the strain off the pancreas, but you don't want to shut the pancreas down. The reason you use the medication is to prevent the pancreas from shutting down. So you want to supplement to reduce the burden on the pancreas so the pancreas can survive, it can regenerate. It will regenerate. It will heal. Cells divide. Everywhere in the body, they say they don't regenerate. That is untrue. Every cell in the body regenerates. And if you can take the pressure off, it will do its best job to heal. I'm not saying it'll solve the problem, but I'm saying it will be better than it was. And so diabetic medication is supposed to be administered when you're pre-diabetic. Taking the strain off the pancreas, allowing the pancreas to get some stress relief, some anxiety relief, allow the cells to relax and be able to subdivide, because if not, the damage grows. And the medication is supposed to take the stress off and allow the strain to be off of the cells so they can subdivide and eventually start repairing themselves and regenerating. So that's what it's supposed to do, but doctors don't administer things correctly. And that's why you can't go without the psychology portion and say, well, they're not going. Well, part of the annual physical is they can do a mental survey, and it can just be a simple in there, and you go through a question and answer situation. And you do a little survey for general practitioners, and they ask you some questions. And then the result comes back. It's to unearth general, that you might be experiencing some anxiety or stress that's undue. And so they give it to you as part of the physical of your evaluation. And the doctors are supposed to do a preliminary check of your eyes and that, which they don't do. They don't really check your ears well. And then if they need to, they turn it over to the ear, nose, and throat. They turn it over to the therapist. But this should be all part of the annual physical, the general wellness check. And when you do a wellness check, you're supposed to be checking all the systems. And that's where we fail in healthcare. We don't check all the systems. And so the stress could be coming from lack of a relationship, or your relationship's not going well. But they give you the questionnaire. And so they have to create it correctly and keep on refining it so the questionnaire is effective. And so when you go in, they're like, okay, it seems like you might need to see a therapist to see if there's truly something deeper here. And it could not be something deeper. As they test, you go into therapists for a few, and they're like, they do the 72-hour, you go in for 3 appointments, and they do the evaluation and see if it's something deeper. So they need to do these things to make things correct. And we're missing this. When police officers go in, they have general practitioners, and it's a simple questionnaire. And they just answer it. And remember, when they're dishonest, and tell them, if you're dishonest, the results are going to come back inappropriate, and we might think you're severely impaired and take you out of duty. So don't lie in the questionnaire, because if you tried to beat and this is what I tried to do, sometimes figure it out, and I learned, no, I don't do that anymore, because the results came back not in my favor, actually, when I did a test to get hired, when I asked about speeding, and they wanted to know, am I somewhat aggressive? But I don't like to break the law, but I like speed. And so I answered it, and they thought I was too conservative for the position. But he went over it with me, and he's like, why did you answer this question this way? And I said, well, the way it's worded is, and he's like, nah. He's like, do you like racing and all that? Yeah. Do you like speed? Yeah. Okay. So this question is the wrong result. And he did. And he's like, you're the person we want to hire. And then we went into bidding. Truly. But he went over the questions to see if, I went through it and didn't try to beat the exam or misunderstand the question. He didn't give me the answer. He just asked me. And so I figured out the question was asking that. They wanted to see aggressivity. The question was about, are you competitive? That's really what it was about. You say aggressive, it was about competitiveness. They wanted to see if you had a competitive ability. This is a sales position. And they wanted to see if you would be aggressive and compete for the business, which, if anyone knows, I'm righteous, but I am incredibly ultra competitive. I am competitive. And so when the rules, and I like playing within the rules, I never break the rules, because then I'm not good. I'm lying to myself. And so I like to assess myself properly. Can I win fairly? Then I truly earned it. So, but I am highly competitive in the rules. And I like following the rules. But I understand holding penalties. Just like in basketball, they refined it so you can grab the player and pull him to the ground. That's a strategic foul. Sometimes you get the pass interference because you don't want the touchdown. So there are fouls, but coaches understand. They want the smart fouls, not the ones that destroy you. They want you to use it strategically. Like if the guy's going to light up the quarterback, do the holding penalty. Truly, if you miss your block and the guy's going by and he's going to light up the quarterback, do the freaking holding penalty. So there's times and there's exceptions to the rule. There are times, like if I'm going to get shot at with a gun, I'm going to run the light. So there are times when you break the rules. All rules at times can be broken. And that's what the Bible was trying to tell you. There are times for every rule to break. That's the point of Mark, and you'll denounce me 3 times and so on. But the whole point was teaching you there are times, or was it Peter? Anyways, the whole point was there are times that you can break the rule. Just like I learned from Muslims. There are times when they are at threat and they can lie to their enemy. And so this is what they use in the Quran to justify terrorists lying to their enemy. That it does say if your life is at threat, that you can deceive your enemy to spare your life. And it's the same thing in the Bible, and I showed the correlation. But that's why they come in and they don't announce their true agenda, because you're their enemy. And so in the Quran, they're allowed to lie to you because it would jeopardize their life. But they were false prophets teaching them, because they weren't doing things on a holy scale. So again, there are many ways to fight a battle, and I don't think they were fighting it right. But again, I understand where they're coming from and why they lie and why they deceive and why in the Quran it says you can do it. But I'm telling you, I've been watching Clerics my whole life. All them that got on TV and that, I used to watch them to see who was telling the truth and who was deceiving and who was doing the right things by their people and who was doing the wrong thing. I took Jen in the miniature world and analysis of the Muslim world and everything. I hung out with tons of Muslims. I've been analyzing them and analyzing Jews my whole life. It's the same thing. So it's just not Christianity. I understand they're all Abrahamic, and that's my roots. And I had to deeply understand the Muslim religion and the Jewish religion to understand my roots. And so I spent a lot of time in many religious classes, outside of religious, studying the Quran, studying the Torah, studying the Bible, trying to get down and bear down to the absolute truth of the matter. So I'm coming with now almost 6 decades of study. Truly, I started when I was, maybe 3 years old. Truly. You can start study with your child at 3, biblical study. They have more than the ability to grasp, or they should have the ability to grasp. But the whole point is, it starts young and you build the proper foundations. And this is what we don't get. It is critical to build the proper foundations to install them. And you take the black community, and I keep on harping on them, because it's not like Good Times. If they had families like Good Times, where the mother and father both worked hard, were honest, and kept their kids doing the right thing, and one, JJ, he likes to do arts, and Thelma and all that, that's fine. They have different paths. And Michael is an artist too. But the whole point, they have different looks. They go about things a little different. And I like their aunt. She's a good girl. Now, she's not as, righteous as both of them. But she brings a little excitement and fun and so on. And she dips her toe. Surely, she softly dips her toe. She's overwhelmingly good, say 10% bad. So she dips in her foot at times and does things a little bit more liberal. But it brings excitement. I love that show. I love George Jefferson. I loved Archie Bunker. I mean, truly, and they bring up hard-hitting issues. And they bring them in, and then they, kind of add some comedy to soften it, but they're trying to really tackle some serious freaking issues. So there's the whole thing with Archie being a racehead and Archie being ultra-conservative and meathead and his ultra-liberal son-in-law and so on, and he's afraid his daughter is going off course. And Sally, the girl, she's a huge animal rights person. I watched her after she got done. She was a spokesperson, I forget for what animal rights organization. She's a huge animal rights person. But that's what she went on. She went on doing commercials for animal rights organizations. So she left, acting on TV to do these endorsements and awareness for animal rights. She's a big, huge animal rights advocate. But that's where she took her career. It fulfilled her. And I liked her stuff. And I liked her raising awareness of the abuses and so on of animals. So she's got a great heart. So anyways, we're down here. Cadillac. Yep, the Lion King. Now, I sat in the corner seat, but these actors I thought were incredible. And I give it to Disney. When I saw this, I couldn't stop talking about it. And they did these things, and it was awesome. Truly, it was an incredible theatrical play. I was blown away. They were so professional and so good. It was amazing. Truly, I see it again in a heartbeat. I think I like that way better than Wicked. Now, I like Wicked. I saw that like 4 or 5 times. But I only saw The Lion King once, and truly, it was incredible. It's just like the Blue Man Group. When I saw those guys, that was incredible. Those guys were incredible. Unbelievable. I had the best of times. I saw it with Jen and her aunt from Korea. The 3 of us, me and the 2 girls. The way I like to hang. But again, we saw this, like when I saw the Wicked. I went with Jen, me, I was the only boy, and it was Jen, Grace, Mia, Lisa, Carol, and I forget who other. Me and like 5, 6 girls, all Asian, but we were all great friends. One thing Jen did, and she did do this, she overemphasized it, she focused on introducing me to every single one of her girlfriends. Truly. Like when I got on the bus for Chicago Care, I didn't know Liz very well, and she told me not to sit by her, but go sit by Liz. And I want you to get to know her. And she told me to go out with Erica. Just me and Erica. She told me to go out with Carol, and I would go out and hang out with Carol. And all of her girlfriends I interacted individually with, and she emphasized that she wanted me to hang out with them and get to know them deeply. And then she said, they're more your friends than my friends. You understand them better and communicate with them better than I do. But she wasn't jealous. That's what she wanted. That was her goal. She thought that I would be incredibly beneficial to all these Asian girls. I met her friends like Jay Kim and that. But there's Christine, who Jay married. Christine Kim. And Christine was one who worried about me to make sure that I was in the proper place. Highly protective of me. But again, these girls, Lisa and others, they became incredibly protective of me. And I felt a deep love for them because of that, too. Because it was, it breaks me up. Because I didn't really get that a lot in my life. Where they became highly protective of me. I was highly protective of them. Truly. Like when I had to correct Jeff for Carol, because I thought Jeff was being unfair. It was a no-brainer. Once Jen told me, I corrected and Jeff corrected. They ended up splitting up, and that was fine. It was better off that way. Jeff was being a little bit immature and not handling his debt situation correctly. And so, anyways, not getting into it, but Jeff's a big-time consultant, and we get along perfectly. He understood where I was coming from. He didn't get mad at me. even if I did push him off the raft into the water, but he was wearing a life jacket. But the reason I pushed him into the water, and I did physically shove him into the water, because I was talking to him and I wanted him to know I meant business and I wasn't messing around. So I took him and I shoved him and knocked him into the water. And he looked at me, and then he got back in the raft and he shut his mouth. I'm being deadly serious with you, and I want you to correct your actions. And he did. And see, he thought I was being laughing matter. Nah. To me, it wasn't a laughing matter. It was either repent or I'm going to hurt you. I want you to get the message, so the action will not continue. But again, I love Carol. So truly, they became incredibly deep. And every time I think about it, I cry over the relationships I lost, because I developed a very deep connection with them and wanted to further that connection. So we're down in Fulton Market. Oh, there's Live Nation. So I can pull in here. And so Live Nation. So I wonder if this is their ticket office too, because on the lower floor you can have ticket office, and then you can have all types of Live Nation gear. Truly all the concert gear, stuff that is coming up and stuff that, but this is store only. So it tells it, concert, and you have to segregate, because that's the value of going to the concert, buying something somebody else can't get, like going to the Bulls game and buying a cap at the game. So Major League Baseball, and that they have to separate what people buy off or outside the stadium than things they buy at the stadium. Truly, and things they buy at the stadium have more value. And so you want to come to the game and you want to buy during game, and people buy after and before, because it's different. It's harder to get. You have to attend the game. So it's only for fans. It's not the retail shop outside. That's non-game wear. It makes it special to come to the Bulls game, the Hawks game, and all those vendors count on them filling the stadium. Filling the stadium. All the restaurants, all the buses, all the transportation people. And they count on them filling the stadium. And so you can only get the gear if you attend the event. Like I got a US Open shirt from Jen because she attended the event. Now, it should have been only for those that had tickets. You can buy for yourself or somebody else, but it is official attire. So I don't know if they need to limit it. I don't think you need a dilution where I guess you can't buy boxes of stuff. Truly. They have to limit it because they want an anti-dilution, because then it loses its prestige. Then somebody buys it just to resell it. You want them to buy it because they want to have something unique and they want to wear it or preserve it and they want to hold it. So it's like a restricted stock option. So it makes it very unique. And so they get it. They can even they can stamp it or embroider it right there, like bedazzle it in a way that gives the date and what the final score of the game was on it. They can put it on the inside. It doesn't have to show on the outside, but it's some further authorization that you were there. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You attended. You showed up. So they want to make it, and so they got to limit how much you can buy. Like you can buy 1 or 2 items, but you can't buy items for the whole family. Truly, you can't. Because that's unfair to everybody else. So you can go to the retail shop, or they can sell you non-game stuff right there too. But for the people that attend it, they're inside the stadium, so you had to attend the game. It's like getting past the counter at the airport. You got to show your ticket. And so you can go in and purchase stuff for that game. And if you missed and you hold the ticket and they have it, the picture and everything else, verification because of the attendance, you can go in later if you change your mind. As long as you got your ticket, you can go back in. They can look it up and verify, and they're like, okay, we'll give you one. So, meaning you can buy one. But they need to do these things to drive people into the stadium. So all the vendors that rely on all that stadium visits, from the parking to the CTA to the RTA to all of them, it drives them into the stadium. So again, they have to do these things like Live Nation. They can have things for all the concerts they have, and if you have a ticket and came back and they can verify you were there, then you can order it through that office. So they can set up, if people didn't attend and buy, they have their purchase record. They need to tie it to the ticket, to the attendance, what merchandise they buy. They don't want to be fleeced. Remember, this is why they stopped autographing when people used to come in early to the Cubs game. Excuse me. They used to come in and watch batting practice. And then the players would, do batting practice. They hit home runs and foul balls, and then they throw some balls into the stands. And then at the end of batting practice, or sometimes, they would sign balls. Well, what happened? The scalpers. And they had the little kids run up and like, oh, Keith, or Rick Sutcliffe, Rick, sign this. And they would bring up a ball or two, and they would do this from game to game during batting practice and have the little kids, because the players wouldn't sign it. They knew the scalpers, the memorabilia people. That's who was doing it. And then the player said, screw this. I signed the ball for the kid, and now I see you're auctioning it off. And they were scamming the players. And so the players stopped signing balls during batting practice because the little kids were hawking the balls for money. Not because they were fans, because they were getting something from the memorabilia guy who was going to turn around and sell it in his shop. Back then, in their shop, not online, but in their shop. And so they stopped signing balls. Do you know the shoot around before the game? Do you know they can sign some autographed balls? You can buy it in a gift shop. They're not going to give you a basketball, but they can give one basketball away to somebody signed by an autograph. Jonathan, when I did things for Lisa, he had the whole team sign the ball. And I got tickets and many other things. When I needed things, Jonathan just gave them to me. So I asked for Bulls stuff, and he gave me a bunch of Bulls stuff, including an autographed basketball that had every player sign the basketball. So he just did it without question. It was going to a school in Chicago to raise money for the music program. So when I asked, like Mark Lavelle, who worked for Randy, if I asked for anything, he just gave it to me. Truly, I asked for gift certificates for this or that. He just gave it, and I was giving it to charities. So that's part of all the stuff that I was doing on the back end. I was raising all this stuff for charities from my connection. When we did a charity event for the Schaumburg professionals, I went in to Billy, and we were doing a fundraiser, and Billy gave me a gift card or something. I forget how much, but he just gave it to me. How much he won, and Adam was there. I introduced him to Billy, and Billy just gave it to me for the Schaumburg raffle for the Schaumburg Young Professionals. Without question, without hesitation. You want it? You want it for this? No problem. How much? It's the same thing Mark and all the other guys did. So you say I was doing this all behind the scenes for these charities, helping them raise money, getting all this memorabilia and all these gift certificates from hot places like the W and many others, just because I asked. Because it was for me. I did them tons of favors. And I did do them tons of favors. And they just reciprocated immediately. So I earned all that. Like Michael Morton, when the drink was down here, he just reciprocated. If I need something, no problem at all. What do you need? And he would just give it to me. So, but I earned it. And I got to know Michael through Ross, because Michael and Ross were friends. And Michael knew Scott, but I never interacted with Scott, really, ever. Just from a distance. I pointed him out to Jen. He was in Ghost Bar when I went to Vegas and that. And he acknowledged me and I acknowledged him, but we weren't friends. We didn't talk, and Scott knew I knew about his past when he was at drinking that. We didn't interact. I interacted with Michael. I didn't interact with Scott. He stayed away from me. Truly. Scott didn't change or repent. He got fired from a law firm. He was a thief at the law firm. He got disbarred. Then he went into the liquor industry. I'm still amazed how he could have been an owner of a club when he got disbarred from the liquor he was an attorney at a big law firm, and he got disbarred for fixing something. I forget what illegal stuff he did, but it was a big illegal thing. And then he went into partnership because Michael, he felt kind of sorry for Scott. And, oh yeah, Scott screwed over Michael Whitehead. Truly, at Voodoo Beef Bar, when his investment in that. Scott was an investor, Michael, and Michael got screwed over as an investor in Voodoo, and he was ticked off at them. And basically, mainly Scott. And that Scott kind of did Michael wrong. But I don't know if it was all Scott, but again, he was peed about, not treating the small investor right. And Michael was a smaller investor, and they didn't treat him correctly. What did Vanguard win? Treating the small investor correctly. So they built their business on smaller investors. Yes, they have large investors and huge investors, but they want to treat everybody fairly. And this sends a signal to the large investors that they're not going to screw you over for another large investor. Truly. So they're going to treat everybody fairly, from the small guy to the large guy. And so I understand about treating everybody fairly, but we had our flagship, which if you had $1 million and above, you got special service. We had our Voyager, $500,000 and above, you got special services. So we didn't treat everybody the same because we didn't generate the same revenue from you. So, no, that's not equality. So you don't treat people the same. And we didn't. We have VIP rooms and that for people that generated more revenue for us. And so we treated them special. So that's the same thing. They get discounts on stuff. Vanguard, I was in with our banks and that. And if you had more money on deposit, we had certain things we do for you that we didn't do for other people. Because we had more revenue. What does a wholesaler do? Now, a wholesaler can believe in you and give you something up front, and they do, thinking you're going to earn it. Like I had wholesalers when I started Charlie's They gave me thousands and thousands of dollars of free liquor. I got it from everybody. I got Absolut, you name it. Unbelievable, thousands of dollars in free liquor. Because I was running the place. And all of them knew me from Baja. Why do you think my general manager who hired me, Bill, he worked at Dick's Last Resort. He knew my reputation. And he hired me as the beverage manager. And all the wholesalers knew me. And I was there, and once they saw me, they're like, what do you want? It's on the house. How much do you want? And it was a negotiation, but they gave me thousands of dollars. I filled my shelf with free liquor to open. Marty Fossey and Tim Rasmussen and them, they didn't do any of that. I got the tap box. We paid for it, but I got 110 kegs free from Chicago Beverage of Miller Lite. Free. The tap box was free. We paid $5,000. They gave us 110 kegs that generated us multiple times $5,000. They paid us back numerous times over. 110 kegs. Think about that of Miller Lite. How much that generates at $3 to $4 a glass. How many per keg? They paid us back, I don't know, 5 times, 10 times the amount that we paid for the tap box. So, of the money out, we got a return on that. So they couldn't believe it. I made so much money so fast for them that all of them, from Jack Dolio to all of them, couldn't believe how much money. They thought we do $50,000 in, I forget, $50,000 a week. I did $50,000 in 2 days. Truly. And they couldn't believe how much we were making a month. And I paid back their note in months. They thought they were going to pay it off in, a year or two. I paid it back in months. They loved me. The only one who got it over on me, and I don't know how Charlie convinced them to let me go, but somehow he was able to weasel his brother and everybody else to sever the ties. But I'm going to stop here.